Hey everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Sorry I've been MIA for the past couple days. I've been suffering from vertigo, which is absolutely terrible, but getting through it. It's getting better as the days go by. And I'm going to make this video as quick as and painless as possible for myself. Um, so it shouldn't run too long today. We're just going to be talking about section two of 1984. Just pull my notes up here. I hope you're all enjoying this beautiful weather we're having. It's really great. It's been nice to be able to get outside and get some fresh air. And I hope you're enjoying the book as well. This is my third time reading it, and this is probably my favorite time reading it. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it, more so than the last two times. So definitely worth a reread if you're liking it. So book two, we ended book one with I believe Winston um, running into the strange, mysterious woman in the Proles district and becoming increasingly paranoid that she's a member of the police, the secret police, and actually sort of kicks himself for not killing her, bludgeoning her with a brick or something when he had the chance. So he still is terrified of her and doesn't know what her motives are, which we're going to find out soon. Because right from the start in book two, the mysterious girl who's now wearing a cast falls down in front of Winston back at the office, and he helps her up, and she surreptitiously slips a small note into his hand, and the note says simply, "I love you." For so long, like I said, he thought she was this sort of political spy, and completely misinterpreted her actions, which is, normal, and judging by the circumstances, I don't blame him for it. But the note gives Winston this sudden and powerful will to live and a brand new lease on life. And you can tell his anticipation for what's to come is palpable. And anticipation itself plays a major role throughout this section of the novel. It's basically, us, the reader, anticipating what's going to happen next, and the characters themselves anticipating um, what's going to happen next. So he waits days before he can actually be in a position to talk to the girl, and he gets the chance finally to speak to her in the cafeteria. Um, and they talk discreetly, as discreetly as they can in the cafeteria, and they agree to meet in Victory Square, where there's room to hide and sort of dodge the telescreens for at least a little while in order to chat. And this particular point in time at Victory Square, the Eurasian prisoners are being abused by a large crowd. So Winston and Julia decide on meeting in the countryside for a tryst at this point, and they hold hands briefly. And this is a brief but powerful scene because it shows how hungry humans that are deprived of connection, any sort of connection, can be. Also, again, this action, sorry. Um, Also, this action is a sign of their will to revolt against the party in plain sight. I mean, they're in public and they're holding hands. And it's important to note too about the prisoners being paraded through the street is an example of psychological manipulation. The public is shown what they should hate they're giving a physical representation of what they should hate, and they are allowed to, really get involved in the abuse. And this particular instance um, sustains a sort of cultural uniformity. I mean, this is the culture, um, illustrated. So even in the countryside, Winston gets there before she does, and he's absolutely paranoid. He thinks there could be microphones everywhere, in the bushes, the trees, everywhere. And the girl's obvious experience gives him a little comfort, though, when she shows up. She has definitely done this before, and this is obvious because of how well she knows the landscape. And finally, we learn this mystery woman's name. It's Julia, and they have a passionate sexual encounter sort of right from the start. And it's very similar to the ones that Winston has been dreaming about. And afterward, Winston asks her if she has done this before, and she says, of course, which excites him. Um, the more men she has been with, he tells her, the more he loves her, because this means that more party members are committing crimes. He's no longer alone in his thoughts. This is proof that there are other people out there who are thinking the same things as he is thinking, and going a step further and actually um, doing these things. And this is political revolt. Their relationship, and this is important to remember, their relationship is not just this sort of passionate love affair, but it's also a political revolt, because every time they're together, every time they're embracing one another, they are committing a crime against the party. So in the weeks that follow, they keep meeting, and as they get to know one another, Winston learns more about Julia and her motivations. And she's not so much interested in revolution as much as Winston is. Rather, she's more interested in kind of outwinning outwitting the party, and enjoying herself. She's sort of treating this whole situation more like a game. Remember, she's a lot younger than Winston too. She hasn't really experienced the amount that Winston has, simply because of the age difference. But she does care about him. She truly does care about him. So eventually, they stop meeting in this wooded area, and they settle on this vacant room on top of Mr. Charrington's shop. Remember Mr. Charrington, um, in the Proles district. And as they grow closer, Winston becomes more and more frustrated with the fact that they can't lead a more romantic, leisurely life. And there's one thing that happens that is something to sort of consider. A rat scurries across the floor in the apartment during one of their meetings, and Winston is terrified of this creature. And obviously this represents something, right? What does the rat symbolize, and is it a sort of sign of what's to come? So Julia brings food, real food from the black market, bread, coffee, sugar, luxuries that the rest of us would take for granted because they're just so easily obtained. You can go to Wawa and just, basically get all this stuff without even thinking about it. And this is a common trope in dystopia fiction. Um, a taste, no matter how small, of the world before everything went to hell. There's another example that comes to mind. If you're familiar with Cormac McCarthy's novel, The Road, which is a dystopian novel, the two characters, it's a father and a son, come across a can of Coca-Cola, and the son was born post nuclear fallout, so he's never experienced life before this sort of dystopian world that they're living in, post-apocalyptic world that they're living in, and he tastes the Coke for the first time, and just, I mean, it's the greatest thing he's ever had. And yeah, so this sort of you know, sampling of the world prior to everything going to hell is something that you'll find in dystopian fiction quite often. There's scenes like that in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale too. During this time, O'Brien, the representative of the Brotherhood, makes contact with Winston, and he is invited to O'Brien's house to see. Um, I have a a dictionary. Sorry, to see a Newspeak dictionary. Um, And in chapter 7 of this section, we learn a little bit more about Winston's past. He has a nightmare, wakes up crying, and explains to Julia that he feels he plays a part or sort of role in his mother's death. And the memories he shares with her are of how he stole food from his baby sister, chocolate from his baby sister, and was just completely horrible to the two of them because he was absolutely consumed by hunger and starvation. And he eventually ran away and never heard from either of them again. And this shows how powerful the party's psychological manipulation is. And only in Winston's subconscious can he really still cling to the truth. And this is probably the saddest part of the whole book, that scenario. Um, Soon after, Julia and Winston take a major risk, and they visit O'Brien together. And O'Brien turns off the telescreens, and this is a shock to Winston. But O'Brien explains that because of his perks as a leader in the party, he is able to do this for limited amounts of time every once in a while. And boldly, Winston declares that he and Julia are enemies of the party, and he wants to see it burn. So they state their allegiance to the Brotherhood, and O'Brien says that Emmanuel Goldstein is in fact real, and that he has written a book, a sort of manifesto, and um, says to Winston that he will eventually receive a copy of it in due time. So back in the room after Winston receives the book, it's called The Theory and Practice of Oligarchical Collectivism. And it's broken down into sections. It's a pretty long, prolonged section of the book. And the sections are broken down by party slogans like war is peace, ignorance is strength, etc. And it is a historical account of what has happened to social classes in recent history. And we learn about East Asia, Eurasia, and Oceania, and how they were formed, um, and how there's a sort of a perpetual border war, which is necessary in order basically to keep the ruling class in power. The wars never advanced significantly because it can't. And war is simply used as a tool to keep the ruling class in power and the rest of us in ignorance. You know, if we're constantly caught up in a state of, um, you know, anticipatory state of, well, what's going to happen if if there's, nuclear fallout or something, we can't worry about really much of anything else. So when he finally comes to the end of section 2 of the book, we finally come to the end of section 2 of the book, and as Winston is admiring a woman singing outside, he and Julia talk about how they believe the future of the um, the future lies within the proles, and how, they know that anyone who is a part of the party is eventually doomed. So it is the proles that will have to rise up and put an end to Big Brother. And they say that they are dead. Winston and Julia say that, and a third voice somewhere hidden in the room agrees with them. It says, "You are dead." And this is very, very jarring, for both Winston and Julia and us, the reader. Um, Again, the voice begins to talk to them, and they soon find a telescreen that was hidden behind this painting the whole time. They were never by themselves; they were constantly being surveyed. And clad troops come into the room. They come through the window, the door, and they detain Winston and Julia. Winston and Julia are caught by the Thought Police. We learn that Mr. Charrington, the charming old man that owns this little curiosity shop, has been a member of the Thought Police all along. And that's the end of section 2. Section 3 really gets pretty brutal. Fair warning. And remember the rat from earlier in section 2, that comes into play. And I think one of something that I didn't really notice until this time around was that the section that Goldstein's manifesto. It almost seems like the reason it's so long is because it was like George Orwell was kind of, trying to lull us into a state of comfort, and sort of, you know um, taking away that anticipatory feeling at that point in time in the book, which is a great technique, because when we actually learn that there is a telescreen in the room and that they are being spied on, it makes it even more shocking, even better surprise. So I thought that was really a cool little technique that he uses there. So that's all I have for today. And then next week we finish 1984. So now everybody can say that they've read 1984, which is a great book to have on your list. And then we read Neuromancer by William Gibson, which is frustrating, but also I think very satisfying. And don't let the book scare you. It can be a little confusing at first, but that's what these videos are for. I will make sure that I explain anything that seems a little difficult or hard to understand. And obviously, if you have any questions or any confusion, um, please let me know. I certainly, the first time I read Neuromancer, it was tough. It was a tough read, but like I said, I've read it a few times, and I think that I can explain any confusing aspects of the book. So nothing to worry about. And then after that, we're done as far as reading goes. We switch to television, sci-fi television, which is probably my favorite part of the unit. We're going to watch some Outer Limits episodes, Twilight Zone episodes, maybe some Black Mirror episodes. I don't know. Star Trek, and that's pretty much it. So I look forward to hearing from you guys and reading your discussion posts. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a nice day.